The movie starts with a terrifying and scary vampire named Dracula. Anyone who tries to approach him would die of fear. Then, Dracula appears holding a picture of his late wife, talking to her, saying that he has finally built the place they had always dreamed of for their daughter. He wanted to protect her so that no one could harm her. Years later, a large number of ghosts arrive at Dracula's place, which has now turned into a grand hotel. Dracula welcomes his guests, ensuring that no human has ever entered. They are all gathered to celebrate his daughter's birthday. Dracula shows them pictures of their enemies, humans. Meanwhile, his daughter Mavis is in her room practicing what she will say to her father. She wants to remind him of his promise that she could explore the outside world freely on her 118th birthday. As Dracula enters her room, wishing her a happy birthday, she tells him that she needs to talk about something important. She reminds him of his promise, saying she wants to visit the village where he first met her mother. She assures him that she loves her family and is happy with them, but she also wants to see the outside world. Excitedly, she shares the news with her relatives that she is finally going to leave the castle for the first time. However, one of her relatives warns Dracula, questioning how he could allow his only daughter to visit the frightening humans who despise their kind. Later, Mavis transforms into a bat and flies out of the castle toward the nearby human village. However, Dracula had secretly arrived before her to observe from a distance. When Mavis arrives, she finds the village completely deserted. Suddenly, a group of people appears, carrying torches and advancing toward her. Frightened, she flies away, realizing that her father was right about humans. Dracula's plan has worked. He had arranged for the undead to pretend to be human villagers, scaring Mavis to make her abandon the idea of leaving. When he returns to check on her, she sadly tells him that he was right about humans. Though relieved that his plan succeeded, Dracula still comforts her, giving her a cake he made himself and a gift. Suddenly, a human boy named Johnny enters the hotel. When Dracula sees him, he is shocked and asks how he got in. Johnny explains that he was hiking with his friends in the mountains when he heard strange noises from the nearby spooky forest. He followed the sounds and discovered the hotel, deciding to explore it. At that moment, one of the guests complains about the hotel's service, and Dracula quickly takes Johnny into a room to hide him. When Johnny's phone starts playing music, Dracula panics. If anyone finds out a human has entered the hotel, his reputation will be ruined. Even worse, if Mavis sees Johnny, she will realize that her father lied to her and that humans are not evil. Johnny, completely unaware that he is surrounded by real monsters, jokes about how well Dracula is imitating a real vampire. Dracula disguises Johnny as a monster to blend in and introduces him to the hotel's cook. Meanwhile, Johnny explores the hotel in amazement until he stumbles upon a real skeleton, screams in shock, and runs away. Dracula quickly grabs him, trying to keep him hidden. Eventually, Johnny realizes that Dracula is the real deal and that this is not just some costume party. Dracula explains that the hotel is a sanctuary for all monsters who have been hunted by humans. Johnny, still fascinated, asks to stay a little longer, but Dracula insists on kicking him out. However, before Dracula can remove him, Mavis arrives. To cover up the situation, Dracula introduces Johnny as someone who is helping prepare her birthday party. Mavis finds her father's behavior suspicious, but agrees to let Johnny stay. She then asks Dracula for permission to take a walk with Johnny. Later, the guests ask Dracula to sing like he used to, but he refuses. Meanwhile, Mavis and Johnny talk, and she tells him that her mother chose her name. When she asks for his name, he gives her a fake one, pretending to be her cousin. Johnny awkwardly tries to imitate Frankenstein, and when Dracula is asked about him, he lies, saying Johnny is Mavis's cousin. Johnny, now fully involved in the party preparations, comes up with new fun activities. The first performance is a boring song by Dracula's relatives, and he begins to notice how rigid they are in following traditions. As Dracula's relatives perform their scheduled routine, which everyone finds extremely boring, Johnny plays a song from his phone. The guests get excited and start dancing enthusiastically. Dracula, however, is furious. Later, Johnny offers Dracula some food, but he refuses and pulls him aside. He warns Johnny that if the guests discover he is human, it will be a disaster. He orders Johnny to pretend that his back hurts in front of the others, but the guests misinterpret this and start playing a game where they climb on each other's backs. Dracula's plan backfires. Dracula then tries to hypnotize Johnny into leaving and erasing his memories, but Johnny reveals that he wears contact lenses that help him see better, making hypnosis ineffective. Meanwhile, Mavis takes Johnny on a tour of the hotel and eventually takes him up to the rooftop. Suddenly, Johnny slips and falls, landing right on Dracula's foot, just as Dracula was telling the guests that Johnny had left and wouldn't be coming back. Dracula then desperately tries to get Johnny out of the hotel. He sets up floating tables, hoping to make Johnny fly away, but Johnny ends up using them as a fun ride. Dracula chases him, but gets caught by Mavis, who asks about Johnny. Annoyed, Dracula asks her if she likes him, but Mavis pretends she isn't interested in someone so weird. Later, the hotel's chef discovers Johnny is human and plans to cook him for dinner. Dracula is alerted by the hotel guard and rushes to save Johnny before it's too late. The chef insists that humans are dangerous and wants to prove it with a test, but Johnny fails the test, confirming he is indeed human. Dracula quickly rescues him from the kitchen. Johnny later finds a room filled with pictures of Dracula's wife. He recognizes her face from history, saying her portrait is displayed in museums in the human world. Dracula then shares his story, how he was once a lonely man until he met a woman by chance, fell in love, and had a child with her. However, one day, their house was set on fire, and she died. According to legend, their spirits still haunt the ruins. Dracula reveals that the legend is wrong. Only his wife died, and she was killed by humans who gathered with torches to destroy them. He had asked her to hide, but the humans set everything on fire. That's why he built his castle, to protect his daughter from humans. Johnny argues that times have changed and that people in the 21st century are different. Dracula challenges him to prove it, asking for one piece of evidence that humans would accept them. Johnny doesn't have an answer. Dracula, feeling defeated, decides to let him stay for Mavis's birthday, but refuses to look at him. The next morning, everyone is busy preparing for the party. Mavis, however, sits alone on the rooftop, feeling sad. She asks Dracula to erase her memory because she no longer wants to leave the castle. She holds a book filled with love stories about her mother and tells her father that she has given up on her dreams, just like he has. Meanwhile, the hotel guests, having discovered that Johnny is human, demand their refunds and decide to leave. Dracula tries to explain that Johnny is not like other humans, but they don't listen. Determined, Dracula and his friends set out to find Johnny. They find his t-shirt along the way, and Dracula asks his werewolf friend to track his scent. The werewolf's little daughter finds Johnny's exact location. Dracula and his relatives jump into a car and rush to catch Johnny before he leaves. On the way, they encounter a human who gives them directions to the airport. When they arrive at a monster-themed festival, Dracula tries to scare the crowd, but they cheer for him instead. He tries to explain that he is a real monster, but the people say they love monsters too. Hearing Mavis's story, the festival goers decide to help Dracula reach Johnny before he boards the plane. They cover Dracula with fabric to protect him from the sunlight while he moves quickly through the crowd. Eventually, Dracula transforms into a bat and flies toward the plane. As the sun burns his skin, he struggles to reach Johnny. He calls out to him from the plane window, but Johnny doesn't hear him. Desperate, Dracula flies to the front of the plane, hypnotizes the pilots to make an announcement, and tells Johnny the truth. He admits that he thought he was protecting Mavis, but now he realizes she deserves to see the world. He also tells Johnny that he's happy Mavis trusts someone as kind as him. Dracula asks for Johnny's forgiveness, and Johnny agrees to return. When they arrive at the hotel, Dracula gives Mavis her birthday gift, a travel bag, symbolizing her freedom to explore the world. Johnny then tells Mavis that he only said he hated monsters because he was scared of her father. Finally, Dracula gives Mavis a plane ticket to Hawaii, encouraging her to follow her dream. The movie ends with a wedding at Hotel Transylvania, where Johnny, the human who accidentally entered the vampire's hotel, marries Mavis, Dracula's daughter. As they dance, Mavis asks about her